This is Abe Friedtanzer from Awards Radar, and I'm so thrilled to be speaking with Michael Mosley about his new show, The Calling. How are you, Michael?
I'm good today. How are you?
Good, good. Can you tell me what attracted you initially to this show and this role?
Well, when you have the words David Kelly and Barry Levinson at the top, that's really a pretty good start. And then the idea of shooting a cop drama in New York, in Brooklyn in the summer sounded fun to me. And then when I read the book, uh, which is the source material of the show called The Missing File, I was fascinated by the book. And this character, Abraham, I couldn't wrap my head around him. And I was like, well, who's playing that part? And they were like, Jeff Wilbush is playing that part. And I was like, is that the guy that played that creep from Unorthodox? Like one of the best villains I've ever seen in my life. So I was just sold. I was like, this is going to be so much fun.
And how would you say is this show different from the book?
Well, the book takes place in Israel and we take place in Brooklyn. So that's a big switch. My guy's not even in the book. So when I first got to set, we were all kind of figuring out who Earl was. And then as we kept shooting and as the season progressed, I think we all kind of figured it out. But it's a lot different than the book. The kind of North Star between the book and the TV show is the character Abraham, and Jeff is just so captivating in this series. I think we're so lucky to have him as our quarterback.
No, he's great. I got a chance to speak with him a couple days ago, so it's nice to
Oh,
get
good.
his perspective. And he's, I think, a lot closer to this character than the one from Unorthodox, but still a lot more
He's so
approachable.
much like I can't believe he's that guy in Unorthodox is so miserable, and and Jeff is the complete opposite. He's just like bouncing around on set, and he's so but he's so in possession of his craft and he has such respect for what it is that we do. Yes, he couldn't be more different than that guy on Unorthodox.
There are also scenes that remind me of like The Shield, where your character and a few others are just sort of watching him work and waiting for these big moments
Yeah.
and reveals.
Well, I haven't seen kind of, in the pantheon of great kind of detective shows and detective characters, the Sherlock Holmes and the Philip Marlowe's and the all these kind of guys who've come through the years. Like I don't think I've seen this character before. He's so kind of centered, um, in his spirituality, and it kind of gives him access to a deeper sense of humanity, and he kind of looks and he sees people, he sees the good in some of the worst people. And then and where my guy is, Earl, is a little bit more of he's just a little sloppier. When I was auditioning, I said to Barry, I was like, I just want to be the opposite of him. Like whatever he is, I just want to be the other thing. And so like, whereas like uh Abraham, Jeff's character, is more of like kind of a surgeon and like a sniper, and he's like a shark swimming through the water. I'm more of like I might break a little furniture when I'm like coming in or out of the room. You know what I mean? That's my guy.
I also had the chance to watch the first three episodes, and it sort of feels like Earl is on his own. He's got one guy he's looking at. He's sure that that's the guy he needs to be looking at.
Yeah.
I mean, it almost, it comes to a sort of a level of harassment of just like he won't leave him alone. He's convinced there's something there. What is it like working with Tony?
Oh, Tony is a blast, man. Tony's great. He's another like ball of energy. Like he's like a battery. He's like a quivering battery. He's just like, you don't know what he's gonna do, but he does. When they call action, it all calms and gets still. But that guy, that John Wentworth character that he plays is a very interesting type of kind of transient character. He doesn't quite have a home, but yet he's got a tie and a hat and a briefcase. He's just a very interesting character that Tony gets to play.
Do you think this is the kind of show that will really appeal to those who like, detective mysteries and cop shows?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it's meant to do. It's deeper in the sense that we're following like three different storylines at times. We've got our heroes, our good guys, the cops. uh Good guys can be debatable, but we've got our cops, and then we have we follow the the fish, the Millers, and then the Contis, and you're in the kitchen with these people. You know, you're at their dining room table. You're in their bedroom sometimes, and I don't know if other kind of detective shows you have access to who may or may not have been, you know, the facilitator of the crime.
Right. I think Jeff said it's not really like a procedural, that, you know, it's a lot more focused on specific cases, but also it's not clear, even just a few episodes in for me, how everything still really connects. I'm still piecing all of that together. And so you can't just take a week off and then come in, you know, and anything like that.
Yeah, no, and it's not like it's a new crime every episode. It's also not like there's a new crime every season, you know. There's a lot of different moving parts and moving pieces, and it's also extremely character driven, which I like too. Which is maybe like a nod to say like those like the really good ones like True Detective or something, which was almost as equally about these people as it was about what they were trying to uncover. I mean, you know, that show was pretty great.
Yeah. And so all 8 episodes are premiering on the same day on a Peacock. Do you think people should rush to get through it all, or better to space it out a little bit?
I don't know. I was just asked because I was talking to my people yesterday, and I was like, "Is this coming out a la carte, or is this coming out all in one flop?" And they that's not the right word at all. All in one drop is you know, and they said it's all coming out at once, which I think is fun. You know, I think it'll be interesting to see if people chew this thing up in a week or two. I think that'll be a good sign. You know, I think it's fun. I think it's fun this time in TV. People don't want to. You know, when we were doing broadcast television, like we had to run to the TV, and now that television is streaming, the TV has to come to us. And so, you know, people want to watch 4 episodes of something with their partner in bed eating Chinese food. That, you know, they don't want to wait till Tuesday at 8:30. You know what I mean? People love to just gobble this stuff up now. So I think it's cool. I think it's going to be fun. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I'll probably bang it out pretty quick.
I always try to space things out. Even if I like have a season of something on Netflix that I'm watching early, I still try to watch like 1 episode a day, but then other shows in between. I like to just really appreciate every episode. I don't know. It's an
Sometimes I'll do that. I'll watch like all of it, and then I'll like the last one is the one I can't. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, as soon as I watch that last one, it's over for me. So like that's sometimes I'll punt that last episode for a couple weeks.
Well, I know one of the last shows that I saw you on was The Girl from Plainville, that's the like a couple episodes and then really one at a time. What was it
That's
like
right.
working on that show?
Oh, that was so much. That was so interesting. It was, I don't know if fun's the right word. I mean, they kept it fun. We kept it light. It was um Elle was lovely and such a pro, and it was such a pleasure to get to sit next to her and like doodle on our little legal pads while we were waiting for the cameras to set up. Um, you know, but the subject matter was so heavy and dense. So, but I find that sometimes on these shows, same with Ozark, like which is a very serious and serious gangster kind of show, and with just explosive violence. Um, you know, but we'd call cut, and Jason would be, you know, busting balls and telling jokes, and I find that sometimes on the heavier sets, people, you kind of have to wipe your feet at the door when they call cut, and kind of keep it loose and alive, because otherwise, I mean, who wants to live in that all the time, you know?
Yeah. And I feel like Ozark especially is one show that I remember seeing Jason in the first episode, and I was surprised because, you know, he had done a lot of comedy up until that point. And then, you know, by the end of that show, you really just see how much of a dramatic force he can really be.
Yeah, at the end of that first episode, when he's like, you know, when he's doing his thing, and he's just like, now just give me 1 minute, and he's like crying, shaking, and he pulls that brochure out for Lake of the Ozarks, and this is his only thing he can sell to save his life. Yes, he's a man of great scope and talent. Like he's amazing. He was an amazing guy to work with. He was an amazing guy to hang with and to be directed by. And yeah, he's one of the masters.
Well, without giving anything away for people who haven't seen all of Ozark, you're not in every season.
No.
And I spoke to Alfonso Herrera also about this, and he said that, you know, he was excited to keep watching after he was no longer on the show. Did you stick with the show after you were no longer on it?
Yeah, I mean, I loved it because see, my guy, I don't know, not to spoil it, but you know, there's so many storylines in that thing and separate kind of worlds. So I would read the scripts, kinda. I did this kind of bad actor thing where I was like, this doesn't really concern me, so I'm not gonna, because my guy, I didn't need to know what was going on with the Snells all the time or whatever. And so, and I would get to set and there was like 20 trailers, and I was like, there's so many people in the show and so many storylines. And so I kind of was a fan of the show along with everybody else. I just knew my stuff. I didn't always know what was going on with everybody else's because I didn't really need to. And so when I started watching the show, I was gobbling it up just like everybody else. I was just as fascinated with how, everybody else, because also my guy came in a little bit halfway or like into the first season a little bit. But yeah, then I totally finished it. I didn't, yes, obviously my guy doesn't quite make it through the storm. But I wasn't petty about it at all. I still watched the whole thing and loved it all the way up to the end.
I was also happy to be reminded of your presence on another show that I think is pretty underrated, and that's Longmire.
Oh yeah.
I think that I skew like 60 years younger than the average viewership of that show, which is probably why it's not on anymore, even though it lasted a really long time. I mean, but that just had such a great cast with Katie and everybody else. What was it like to be a part of that show, a brief part of it?
Actually, one of my first jobs ever, and it's on IMDb, was a show called The Education of Max Bickford. That I forget his name now. I'm so rude, but he was the guy who's in Jaws, Richard Dreyfuss. He was the lead of that show, and it was a big thing because he had just come. He was like a movie star, and he was doing TV. And Marcia Gay Harden had just won an Oscar, and she was going to do TV. And it was kind of just before the movie stars kind of came to the smaller screen. It was right around that time, and Katie Sackhoff was in it, and it was my first TV job. She played Richard Dreyfuss's daughter, and I played her boyfriend for 3 episodes. I was her photographer boyfriend or something. And then 10 years later, we get to set, and I was like, I don't know if you're gonna remember me. And she's like, yeah, I remember you. And so like now I was married to her in a cowboy show. So it was fun. And she's also such a pleasure. You know what I mean? She's just such a pro and takes the work seriously enough, and is also able to kind of shake it off at the end of the day. Like, she's cool.
And I think what I may have first seen you in was Scrubs, even though that was another instance of like coming in towards the end of it. I feel like we have to be due for a reboot at some point, given how everything gets rebooted these days. But do you have positive associations with that role? And would you want to be a part of something like that?
Oh my God, yeah, of course. I mean, the thing about Scrubs is that was like the first time I was ever like on a call sheet. Like I was like in a company. Like I wasn't like when I was doing other shows, I was recurring or a guest star or something like that. But that was the first time they gave me a contract, and they were like, "No, this is you're in the club now," and it was so much fun. And Bill Lawrence, was kind of our quarterback on that one, and he was so great. We would do the script as it's written a couple times, and then the writer would just come over and whisper something in somebody's ear, and we would just start trying to crack each other up. And then we would just be riffing, and then you'd see the camera guy starting to shake because he was cracking up and he couldn't keep it together. And you knew you were doing something fun. It was a great way to get paid.
Well, we talked about so many great shows here. Is there anything from your resume that you feel like, if we're going to, your big history, is there something we should have talked about that you really, sticks out to you?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I've done some stuff, man. I feel like I've been lucky enough to. I'm looking at my dome. I feel like I've been lucky enough in this business for as many years as I've been getting to do this. That there's some good stuff. There's a movie I shot a couple years ago called Sister Amy, which I think is on Amazon.
I should have asked you about that. I remember that. That's a wacky movie, but a great movie. And
did you watch that movie?
I saw it at South by Southwest.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So we would have been there at the same time. Yeah. It was I just loved that movie. I loved all those ladies, working with those ladies. I loved that part. I loved being, it's a comedy, but it's also kind of like the blood is real in it. It's kind of a Coen Brothers-y or something like that, where it's funny, but it's also scary at times. And I don't know. And it was a period piece. So it's always fun to get to drive like an old Model T Ford, like around some dusty town in New Mexico, I mean, it was great. Yeah, so if anybody wants to check anything out, you should check out Sister Amy on Prime.
A great choice. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today, and best of luck with the calling and everything else.
Thanks, Abe.